Oh my, everybody wants to grow their readership. They want to get a larger base, but some people go, I don't know what to do. Well, it just so happens I brought in an expert just for you, and he is actively helping grow young man's readership that we're doing through Book Rescue. His name's Robert G. Culp, but the gentleman that I'm talking about that's bringing his expertise to the table, it's going to show you how to gamify and explosively grow your readership. And that's my boy, Johnny Andrews. Johnny is a online business strategist, and he is an OG self-publisher. We're talking back to 2006, prior to Kindle being around. This man knows what's going on, and he's taken authors from just mired in obscurity to having large readerships to where they're pulling in 6 figures and sometimes even 7 figures per year. And this is very possible, though I'm not going to make any promises today. I don't know if Johnny will. Johnny, welcome back to the show. I think you're a 4-time guest at this point. Am I not right?
I think it is something like that. There was once upon a time my face graced the screens of YouTube everywhere. It was wonderful. So thanks for having me back. And as usual, your intros, like I need to just bottle that. And every time I walk into a room, just be like,
I'll be your hype man. I don't charge
Please.
much. I'll just be your hype man. I'll go in. I'll even bring a boombox in, and we'll just go ahead and introduce things. Well, all joking aside, everybody came here for a good reason, because they're always struggling with getting readers. Let's kind of address the elephant in the room. Why is that a problem for a lot of authors?
Well, it's, to kind of generalize this, and I would, dare I say, normalize this. It's not just a problem for authors, it's a problem for everybody. And let me kind of encapsulate this, because I don't just, float around in the author space. I do a lot of things across, multiple different businesses. The latest ones we talked about with my wife, local charcuterie thing, same stuff. Liam Neeson. I've got a particular set of skills. And they are able to deploy that set to create that thing. And in a normal world, let's just say it's a carpenter. All right. You know how to build things. You know how to put things together, measure, make cuteness out of wood. Well, that skill does not in any way, shape, or form lend itself naturally to growing a business. It's the same thing across the board with everybody. You could be a baker. You could be a stonemason. You can make anything, charcuterie, who cares? But it is a completely different mindset and set of skills, as we've been talking about with Robert, that because he's great at writing stories, and a lot of authors are amazing at writing stories. And I think The Field of Dreams did as a wonderful movie as it is, did everybody in business a disservice, because almost at no point in time has it ever been true that if you build it, they will come. That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And, in the early, and so there's a little caveat to that with like some early day stuff, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Amazon. In the early days, when something rolls out, there is a laxity to that platform, no matter what it is, because their only purpose in life is to grow their base. And with Amazon, for example, it was authors and readers. And so in the early days when Kindle first started happening, you would have people, and the majority of them were business opportunity seekers, like people that didn't really care about the book. They were just like, how can I make money from the comfort of my own home and stain dirty underwear? Like that kind of stuff. I know these people personally. So it's like, okay, none of this is very far-fetched. And what would happen is they were doing what's called PLR and private label rights stuff. So things that have been written where you could buy the rights to it. And so there were probably like 750,000 copies of how to do Chinese cooking that had been it was essentially, think of it this way. In the early days of Kindle, it was very, very much like somebody had hooked up the sewer line directly into the middle of someone's forehead and were just dumping raw human feces into the pool. And it was awful. So what I did to help a little was so when you say like OG of publishing, circa, I want to say like, January 2012, it literally, because they started in 2000, like at tail end of 2007, I was in there doing the same stupid crap everyone else was, because I was like, well, let's see what happens. So I put like a VA on it. I'm like, publish, make me wealthy. It didn't work out that way, just as
Yeah.
an FYI. But I was, guilty of all of the atrocities, same as everybody else. And I finally actually wrote a book and did it the right way and launched it. And lo and behold, it became like the feature book on Amazon's business and investing page forever. Like, just absolutely wiped out Robert Kiyosaki, almost said Bryan Adams, but that would have been funny. No, I didn't quite cross into the musical world,
No.
but, what is his name? Robert Kiyosaki, what is this? Dave Ramsey, that's it. Susie Orman, like, blew them all away.
Yeah.
And what I realized was, oh, this is good. It needs to be a decent thing. And that has held true, I think, even more so now, because there's a much, much more defined yardstick today than there was way back in the day, and stuff like that. And so to bring this all together, what exists here is the reality that there's still a very large belief that if you build it, they will come. That does, like, never go into anything expecting that to be the case.
Yeah.
Because if you do, 99.9% of the time you're going to fail. And it's probably not because you suck. And that's an unfortunate reality for a lot of authors, is that they are brilliant. And like I said, universal across the business world, is that they tend to be really good at the thing that they do, but they're not good at all of the other pieces that make this so important. And what's great about, what I really do appreciate and love about self-publishing, is I think that this is one of those few places where people are open about the fact they suck at that, and they embrace it wholeheartedly and are like, listen, please help. And they'll go, there's very active groups where these are the kind of conversations that come up all the time. And it's nice to know that there is an industry where that level of self-awareness exists. Now, it's not universal, don't get me wrong, but it's more prevalent here than, let's say, in the dry cleaning industry or or something like that, where it's like, well, I can dry shirts, but I cannot drive traffic. They don't really think like that.
So we've identified the problem. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about the solution, about gamifying and growing that readership. And I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit of our behind the scenes of Book Rescue episode 5 and 6 that's in full production right now.
All right. Well, that was a fun one, I got to say, because I think it wasn't until after we had already stopped rolling that all of a sudden the light bulb went on. I'm like, oh, dude, why don't we do the thing with Robert? Like, this is what we should do. So there's a lot of psychology that kind of goes into the background of these things. And so I'll try to kind of boil it down.
Sure.
But what you need to do is you need to bring unto you. Let me start with this. There is a massive difference between hanging your shingle out, from an old school business reference, and letting that natural street traffic come by and people over time are going to come and like you, versus becoming Mariah Carey. I don't know why I thought of her, but that's the name that just shot into my head. All right. So there we go. Yeah. Now that's like apex predator level kind of stuff, where there's a ton of luck, the Pharrells, the Jay-Z's, the Beyoncés of the world that are like, boom, like 0.001% of the top 1%. And I'm thinking in terms of music, because my kids, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Stephen King, that kind of thing. That's how I think a lot of people perceive success. And, 15, 20 years ago, that would have been moderately true, because that's how the things would have gone.
It was a Wild West then.
Well, not just that, but there were so few distribution channels. There was really no direct to consumer. Like, you got on a late night talk show and you would talk about your book. Like, that's just how it was. But that world is over. It has been for, 10 years at least. But that kind of like echo still exists in a lot of people's minds. So the first thing to really understand is that you're probably not going to be that person, and that it is really a bad idea to try, because you're setting yourself up for some pretty horrific failure if that is the yardstick that you're using to measure. Instead, this is what you do. You want to think about in terms of, I want to find the people who are going to like my stuff and going to like me. So if you're like a shy, mousy human being and you don't want to get out there and like, hey, how you doing? My name is Johnny Andrews and I'm streaming live through some random Facebook group with this weirdo, that kind of thing. If you don't want to do that, don't. you can completely be yourself. You just want to be, I guess the best way, like when I coach my wife with this, because we do a lot of virtual classes, I'm like, listen, babe, you're awesome. I just need you to be the most caffeinated version of yourself possible, because that's, you want to be able to connect with that. So you want to get out there in a way that is comfortable for you. Or if you're really thinking of pushing the envelope, get a little uncomfortable. I think a lot of people could use some of that.
Yeah.
And go find those people that are going to like your stuff. So if you're a fantasy writer like Robert is, that's what you got to do, is go rub some elbows with some other fantasy authors. And so what happens is you create a friend network, an authentic, real friend network. I like to call it a syndicate, because then it makes it sound evil and endorsed by Satan himself. Yeah, it's like, get the syndicate together. We'll murder everyone. So you build your little syndicate of people, and everybody helps everybody else out. And so there should be, yes, you want to have an authentic friendship with folks. And I mean, this is what I was doing before I got married. I would travel around to all these different conferences, and I would hook up with my little syndicate of humans, and we would sit there and promote each other. And we would have a good time with it. We would have fun. So even if there's, some random, I don't know, it's hypothetical. Let's imagine there's some random virus rampaging through the earth, doing all sorts of weird stuff and causing people to stay home. Guess what? You're going to have your Zoom friends.
Yeah.
And you could still do the same thing. It's all complete. Nothing has changed. So you want to have this little friendly group of people, and you want to think of your marketing and your audience building and your audience engagement as an extension of the books you're writing. And I think that's where there's a lot of breakdown, especially in this publishing world, is that the people are like, I love to write. This is what I do. I love to publish this stuff. It's great, but I really hate that disgusting, filthy marketing. And that's a throwback in a lot of ways to a belief, that sales is bad, that making profits are bad and that kind of thing. They're really not. It's like, it's what you choose to do with it. And bad marketing is obvious. Like, so this is one of those things where it's like, dude, I get it. Seriously. Because you can have like that, the dirty shirt kind of used car, like, hey, can I interest you in a Ferrari? Lightly used, I promise. That's gross. Like the, wacky inflatable tube man thing. That's really stupid. But the fun part is, like, authors are creative. I think that's sort of the thing by definition, if I'm not mistaken, is that access to creativity. That access to creativity, it needs to make the marketing a part of the journey of the book, of the story, to be able to bring those people in. And I'm not saying go build an app. That's not it at all.
Right.
It's more so, how can you engage and how can you gamify the experience of hearing about this thing that you've put out that people probably want to buy and read. And that's where the mindset shifts. So rather than saying marketing is gross or sales are bad, say, I'm going to make this the coolest experience my readers have ever seen.
Okay.
Why can't you say that instead? Both are true if you make them true.
Yeah.
So once again, now we're in a malleable reality, but that's, it's probably as genuine an answer as I can give, is you want to look at the situation and say, how can I make this fun for people to experience? Not like, how can I, how many net impressions can I get? Because I think, and I brought this up probably for almost 2 decades now, is that people forget sometimes when they're looking at the marketing thing, that those impressions and those clicks and those people, those engagements, those are real human beings. I mean, mostly. Some of them are also scam bots, but hey, whatever, tomato. But by and large, those are actual human beings who have wants, needs, desires, feelings, who are looking for an experience. Mm-hmm. And if you can give them an experience that is cool and exciting and fun, great, do that. You don't need to be like, buy my stuff. How come you haven't bought my book? Buy my stuff. Like, because nobody likes that.
No.
Ever. Like, it's what's funny about that is, people are like, I don't want to be spammed. It's like, no one's going to spam you. It drives me nuts, because it's like, it's your choice. You can either be a crappy marketer and spam the world, or you can absorb the reality that marketing is a part of what you do as an author and make it part of the awesome experience. Have fun with it, gamify it, do giveaways, partner with other authors and promotions and things like that. And that's really what it is you want to start thinking about, to get into the nitty gritty, I suppose, think about these things are eyeball farms. Facebook is an eyeball farm. Facebook groups are a subreddit of the eyeball farm.
Yeah.
Pinterest can be an eyeball farm. You know, where are you going to farm your eyeballs? And so you start looking for, okay, who has, say, you know, we'll use Facebook groups as an example. Who has the eyeballs that I'm looking for? Who has the readers? You know, maybe you're a mystery thriller author, whatever. Who has a group of mystery thriller people? You know, you can use video. Doesn't need to be you. Get creative about it. Seriously. Like, come on, authors, creativity. Like,
Yeah.
It's so funny when we talk about marketing, how, because I think at this point, like my crew has worked with somewhere in the neighborhood of like 18,000 different authors, almost universally. When we start talking about marketing, the creative side of the brain, it's like a steel door comes down. Exactly. I'm like, no. Open that crap up. That's what it needs to do.
We need open air.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Because if not, it's just going to start to smell like, you know, used car sales dudes' toots. And nobody needs that ever.
No.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah. So we've got a very unique situation. And I think that this is something that a lot of indie authors can identify with. Robert is cash strapped. Like, we're talking, he does not have 2 cents to rub together to do any type of marketing. So you, as soon as I told you this, you were like, mine. Oh, this is the best opportunity. Why was that the best opportunity to work with somebody? And what was your thinking behind what we did? And also, of course, let's make sure that we lead into what are we doing, because then it'll give people a little bit of an idea of the blueprint of how we're just gamifying this for Robert and massively exploding his reader base.
Absolutely. Well, the first part of it, why was this so exciting to me? It's because I was born violently wealthy and I enjoy making fun of poor people. And that is just the thing that gets me. That's my fun way. Like, I used to be homeless. All right. So when I was homeless, I got hit with identity theft, wiped out completely financially. Like, everything was maxed out. I had to overdraw my bank account. Long story short, it did not happen overnight, but I literally, with, you know, crap credit, you know, people blowing up my phone trying to get collections and stuff like that, built a multi-7-figure business out of sheer will, you know. And so when you started, that's one of those things where it taught me it doesn't really matter where you come from. Like, my parents were academics, and, you know, what that means is that they thought that business was evil. And I grew up with all these negative beliefs around business.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's like there was this constant war, like, in the psyche, that all this stuff is evil and people that succeed are bad. None of that was true. And so so that's really a big thing that happens to, I think, a lot of people out there. And when you started telling me what Robert was doing, I'm like, I don't think this guy has, well, he probably does, because almost everybody does, but like to the extent that I did. But he's in a situation where the only direction he can go is up.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about like the effort and he's writing books on a freaking smartphone, dude. I loved it. I'm like, all right, Captain Grittiness, we're going to light some fire under the nuts. Like, here's what you do. Because the thing that I never had, that I always wanted to have, was some weirdo like myself who's like, hey, I see you putting in some hustle. How about I give you a little direction with that, so maybe we can clip, say, 7 to 10 years off this ridiculous timeline.
Yeah.
You know? And so I looked at as I could finally be the savior that I've always wanted to be. I'm sorry, I can't even. So that kind of got into what we were. It's like, if I had anybody at any time, or, you know, again, if I was even ready to hear them, I don't know if I was, when I was in that situation, I wanted to at least throw that out there, and then to see, you know, I gave him impossible tasks.
Oh, yeah.
And he did not. Yeah, and he did not complete them, which was fine, because I didn't expect him to, because nobody could. But what I really appreciated was how hard he worked to get there, and then what he produced from it was all we needed to work with. Like, he did so well, and it was like, dude is up there. Dude's good. Okay. Like, I'm like, I see you, little man. It's okay. And so what we're doing now is what I like there's a lot of guilt by association. There's a lot of bigger than me kind of thing. And so in this kind of situation, and this is not something that you can do all the time, but you could take the concepts from this and you can rock this out maybe once a year, twice a year in, whatever kind of thing you're going to do. But it's like, let's create a cause. Book rescue is a unique situation where it's kind of like Pimp My Ride, but with like, I don't know, better outcomes kind of thing, than sort of like a smoking Trans Am with a stripper pole, which don't get me wrong, those have their place. But this is like, let's take somebody that's really working their butt off and that absolutely truly needs a little help. And let's try to see what we could do. And so with this situation, what we're doing is we've created a gamified giveaway where we're going to be blasting it into the fantasy world. And this is very much like, I had some folks early on who helped me out to a little bit kind of like this, just to get me that little toehold on the bottom rung. And I'm like, I can do at least that. This is one of those pay it forward kind of moments. And so what we're doing is we have a cause. We have Robert, plus we're going to be showing a lot of other authors how these things work and the stats and the data behind it. And then what we're doing is we have to do some capital raising, because it's all fun and games until somebody whips out their wallet and buys something.
True.
And so the reality is we have to be able to validate the concept of this by people who are like, yeah, I'll put money into this. This is cool. And we're not asking for a ton kind of thing. It's like, hey, would you like to be a sponsor? So we're recruiting 100 other authors who are willing to promote, who said no drama, we'll see, and who are willing to throw in, not an absurd amount of money. And it's like, let's do 100 of them. And that should raise somewhere in the neighborhood of like $8,000. Yeah. And what that allows us to do is take that money and go on a really nice vacation.
Dude, someone's clipping off right now. Stay with us. He's being funny.
Exactly. Like, let me tell you about my cabin on the cruise ship. No, what it allows us to do is now we can put together, and now we want to start thinking reader focused, right? So on the back end, it's industry focused. Like, what is there a reason for this? Is there what is the benefit to all of them? Yeah. And the benefit is they're going to learn something. They're going to grow their own platforms. They're all, it's one of those rising tide lifts all ships. And then, what on my end we're going to do is we're taking the majority of what is raised and we're just sacrificing it on the altar of advertising, because I love doing that stuff and we're pretty stinking good at it. And so we're able to turn those dollars into subscribers, and those subscribers into social media followers, and those social media followers into active, engaged readers. Yeah. And that's where, this is, so it's like, we can get him this far. Then after that, he needs to take those reins and say, hey, new people who don't know me from a hole in the ground, let's hang, and start to engage them and start to do that stuff, which is the thankless task of everyone who decides to get into business. That's the whole thing. That's the concept of engagement. That's the concept of, turning these subscribers into fans. It's a process. It's a journey. Some of them are going to fall off. Hey, sorry, it's life. We're all adults here mostly. So that's really what's going on. Is we're gamifying this massive giveaway with at least 100 authors. I think we're only 4 days? Is it 4 days? 3 days.
We started on Monday, yeah. So it's only 3.5 days at this point.
Yeah, 3.5 days. We're already, I think, over 30% full.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Which by the way,
knocked on some doors.
Where can people find that again?
Oh, you know what? If I could retain information in my mind, it's fantasybookgiveaway.com.
Yes, folks, if you are interested and you are a fantasy author, please go over and visit. And if you're not a fantasy author, go visit anyways, because there's going to be further opportunities, because this guy over here said, let's do this again. And I'm like, okay, this is great.
Totally. Well, and that's the thing. And for you, so what you have to do is manufacture a win across the board. So for sponsors, I'm throwing in one of my sites as a sponsor, and the win for me is like, great, awesome. We can grow that platform too. Win for, authors is they're going to grow everybody grows their platform. Everybody has the opportunity to communicate with these new readers and turn them into lifelong buyers and fans, and that's really the best anyone can do ever. because and that's kind of the thing is there's that, what do you call that, was why have we not found aliens yet? The great barrier kind of thing. That's the great barrier for authors that they have to figure out how to do, is like in their own way, how do we smack into this list of humans that have joined this promo and turn them into people that are like looking forward to the next piece of thing that you're putting out.
Yeah.
You know, that's, and so that's where everybody, it becomes the individual author's responsibility. You know, people like me could do what people like me do, which is, you know, and just like thousands of people pouring from the sky. You know, that's cool. I'm good at that. Like I learned a long time ago, if you're gonna have one skill, you should be able to do the skill of making it rain. So there you go.
Well,
but
you've crushed it on this
trying.
one. Something that you've kind of blazed over is the fact that with this particular giveaway, you managed to get already out the gate with all these different sponsors over 266,000 readers. And that's just with those people alone. And I think you're keeping a tally because I've reached out to
we're like over
syndicate.
300. Yeah, we're over like 300,000 now.
Wow. Okay, so folks, put yourself in this perspective and think to yourself, what would you do if you could be able to talk to 300,000 different people about your book?
I'm not saying they're all going to be dumped in there. So, okay, so that's like in terms of what we're looking for with reach. So, you know,
or impressions.
No, not even impressions. These are actual subscribers.
Okay.
So this is the good stuff. Like the impressions, I could be like, well, at that point, we're probably going to be around like maybe 2 to 3 million.
Right.
Yeah, you know, and it's like if I was talking to Coke, we would be having a much different conversation, and it would include numbers such as those.
Yeah.
But when I'm talking to authors, I'm like, let me give you the bottom line right before somebody like whips out their credit card and buys your book. Yeah. Those would be subscribers typically, because that's the most valuable asset. Now, again, how many of those people are going to join this thing? Couldn't tell you, but this is why you want to have friends in the industry, in the space. This is why you want to do the hand kissing, baby shaking stuff with people who are authors who have audiences similar to you. Did I say it again like that? Sorry. I love kids. Don't worry. It just comes out wrong sometimes. There is this picture of me with my daughter like, I was kidding. I didn't really eat her face. That would be awkward. You want to have authors that you work with you want to have that syndicate. That's what this is.
Yeah.
If you want to look at what makes people successful faster, it's getting a leg up from other people, period.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why when I hear authors say, well, I'm too shy to network, I'm like, well, then you must not like eating.
Yeah.
Because you ain't going to be able to pay for food, because this is what happens. You can go out and buy that stuff, but then like, oh, I'm broke. Like, stop making excuses. If you have no money, go make friends.
Okay. What's the best first step for that? I mean, there's a lot of people that are introverts.
Get dressed, really take a shower, get dressed, feel good about yourself to start with.
Okay.
Also, be able to offer help in some kind of way. Like, best place to go, honestly, as long as you don't get sucked into the drama, are like the Facebook groups, and just stay away from that garbage, please, for the love of all that's holy. Yeah, even when people talk about me, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, they're probably right. I'll just ignore it and feel bad later. But like, you know, you want to get in there and you want to, you know, let's say, for example, you're good at editing. Offer to help somebody out, like check them out, make sure, and it's strategic. You know, you want to make sure that you're offering help in certain ways that will make sense. To give you an example of this, we're doing a virtual charcuterie class. My wife, I built her this studio, and you know, the biggest class we've done so far is about 300 live streaming, where they all had their own, like, we shipped them their own box and their own little charcuterie board, and everybody, like, you know, slicing the meats and cheeses, which I know it causes you physical pain as a vegan, but I'm going to go ahead and keep doing it. Right now, we are like at 2,700 registered people for the next class coming up on the 17th.
Wow.
And yeah, so it is true. And I mean, I'm saying this mildly serious, but it's the biggest virtual charcuterie class in human history.
Okay.
And even if, like, say 10% of the people show up live, we're still going to kill it. Because I think we still have a couple minutes to go, being that it's not there yet. And with the way this thing is kind of increasing, so this has literally built the platform of the association that we're putting together. This is the exact same stuff I do with authors. This is the exact same stuff that I do with all of the book discovery sites, with the mama sites and that kind of stuff. This is a very systematic go-to-market process that I use in every single occasion. It's gamified giveaway. And the way that we did it, to tie it back into the Facebook groups, I went into the largest charcuterie Facebook group on the planet, and I made a very specific kind of post. That post has gone on. I think it got, well over 1,000 comments, and I want to say 10,000 engagements. It was the first post I made in that group, and it just went absolutely ape, because it was done in a specific way where it provided value. It's a big thing. What must I demonstrate to be true in order for people to want to work with me? That's the question that you need to be asking. What must I demonstrate to be true? And I said, who are these folks? What must I demonstrate to be true in an authentic way? Like, you don't want to go, being like, I'm going to lie, because that won't get you anywhere, because people can suss that out from a mile away. You got to be you. You got to do what you do, but do it in such a way that it's going to get you the outcome you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's like human communication. How can I, certain words are going to make people feel better. I could like scream and yell at you with a weird tone and tell you that you look great today, and you'll be like, I'm not sure how to feel about that. That's just kind of how it is. It doesn't. Most things are about how you say it. Like we were talking about before. It's like, in WWE, the crappy wrestler shook the ropes, and everyone's like, "Oh my word! What are you going to do next?"
It's the emotion that they convey, that people connect with. Yeah.
Totally.
So this was a lot of fun, man. We spent the last half hour going through a lot of things. This is really cool to see that this isn't just something that is platform specific. This strategy can work in publishing, and it can work outside of publishing in so many facets. So Johnny, thanks so much for, shedding some light. Folks, you're getting a behind the scenes look at the next 2 episodes of Book Rescue and why it has been so delayed, because we have been working on this massive project. Johnny, how can people get more information about it again?
Well, you can go to, fantasybookgiveaway.com. And if you aren't a fantasy author, there's a little link. It'll send you to an email. You can send us, hey, send us more info. And the other thing is, people, even if you're not going to participate, if you want to donate, you totally can. Other people have done that. In fact, it was people who were donating and said, hey, listen, I'm not in this genre. I just wanted to give this money to help out. I was like, I didn't anticipate that. And thank you.
I didn't either.
I will. And like I told every single one of them, I will sacrifice your dollars on the altar of advertising.
Yeah, we're not pocketing a dime of this, folks.
Nope.
And in fact, we're putting a lot of this time into this, and we're not getting paid a single cent, because we really want to see you guys succeed as the fantasy authors, also seeing Robert succeed on a whole new level. Thanks so much, Johnny, for spending time today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Till later, this is Self-Publishing with Dale on behalf of Johnny Andrews here. Take care of yourselves, folks. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Special shout out to my channel members for both the podcast channel and the main channel. Without your support, some projects we do at Self-Publishing with Dale would be much harder to fund. If you want to contribute to the cause, visit dalelinks.com/memberships for details and get your on-screen shout out at the end of each broadcast. Till later, this has been Self-Publishing.